Hey, what's up, guys? It's the Political Junkie here. I'm going to be covering Bernie Sanders' veteran plan. Today's Veterans Day. And I actually did this video earlier, like 5 minutes ago, but then I realized I was reading the wrong one because I guess he had already kind of like a veterans plan on his website, but he like updated it today, and it includes a lot more stuff than the version I was covering. So I'm going to get through it because it is kind of a lot. So yeah, I'm just gonna read and put in my opinion when I have something to say. So it is honoring our commitment to veterans. As a nation, we have a moral obligation to provide the best quality care to those who put their lives on the line to defend us. Just as planes and tanks and guns are a cost of war, so is taking care of the men and women who we sent off to fight the wars. It includes caring for the spouses and children who have to rebuild their lives after the loss of a loved one. It includes caring for the hundreds of thousands of veterans with multiple amputations or loss of eyesight, post-traumatic stress disorder, and traumatic brain injury. It includes veterans who are having difficulty keeping jobs in order to pay their bills, and it includes the terrible tragedy of veterans committing suicide. As president, I will do everything that I can to make sure that every veteran gets the benefits that they are entitled to receive on time and without delay. We will not dismantle or privatize the VA. We will expand and improve the VA. So yeah, right off the bat, you already see Bernie Sanders. He's basically saying, look, I really agree with sending them off to war. I think since Bernie has been in Congress, he's pretty much voted against every single war. He's seen them as mostly illegal and offensive, not really defensive wars that should actually have been fought by the United States. But he's basically saying if we are sending these men and women to fight off into wars, we should take care of them. And you know, he lists off a bunch of very important stuff. You know, traumatic brain injury and trying to prevent veterans from committing suicide. Veterans commit suicide at a much higher rate than almost anybody else. And at the very end there, he says we will not dismantle or privatize the VA. So the conservatives or the Republicans, mostly as a party, that's mainly what they want to do with the VA, because they don't want to see a government program, a government-run healthcare system prove to be successful, even if it means worsening the care for our veterans. So he believes very much in expanding and improving it so that the veterans can get the healthcare that they need. So I'm going to continue reading. Guarantee veteran benefits and services they were promised. Whether they were drafted 3/4 of a century ago, commissioned, or enlisted within the last few years, no one with prior military service should have to spend months, years, or even decades fighting through the red tape and government bureaucracy to prove they're entitled to the benefits they were promised. As President, Bernie will finally guarantee veterans the benefits and services they were promised. So, I'm pretty sure both people from both sides of the political aisle, this is something they can agree with, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. And yeah. So this is not a new issue for Bernie. He has spent his entire career fighting for veterans. So I was going to say what I know. I know that he worked together with John McCain to give money to the VA system, but I think I see it right here. He's about to get into it. So as the former chair and longtime member of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, one of Bernie's highest priorities in Congress has been ensuring veterans and their families receive the care and benefits they have earned. Amid reports of unacceptable wait times at VA medical facilities during his time as chairman, Bernie spearheaded the bipartisan effort to strengthen the VA healthcare system long into the future. His legislation, authored with the late Senator John McCain, authorized 27 new medical facilities and provided $5 billion to hire more doctors and nurses to care for the surging number of veterans returning from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and those veterans from earlier eras in need of a more complex care. The historic legislation also provided strong incentives to attract talented medical professionals to the VA. So yeah, it seemed like it was a great bill. It gave more money. They were able to hire more doctors and nurses. They were able to do more medical facilities, which is really important because there's a lot of rural areas that do not have access to a good VA hospital. So there needs to be a lot more built and more incentives for medical professionals to go into the VA. So yeah, and it also expanded the VA educational benefits and improved care for survivors of military sexual trauma. So definitely agree. You know, I hate seeing homeless veterans and stuff like that, and I think one of the ways to prevent that from happening is to expand VA educational benefits so that way they can get the education that they deserve and so that they can get a good job when they retire. It is absolutely unacceptable that the misguided priorities in Washington mean that the promises we make to our veterans are being broken by members of Congress and the president each and every day. We have a political process that rewards large defense contractors with wealthy CEOs and high-paid lobbyists, leaving hardworking, patriotic veterans and service members to fight for their benefits long after they finish fighting for our country. The broken budget process in Washington provides a fraction of the funding actually needed to provide the services and to benefit our nation's veterans earned and deserved. As President Bernie will fight for our nation's veterans to get them the funding, services, and benefits they are owed and deserve. So yeah, you hear this constantly, even though the VA is one of the highest rated healthcare insurance companies in the United States, like in terms of satisfaction. One of the main complaints you hear is that veterans have to go through so much like red tape. There's a lot of wait times for it. And Bernie Sanders here is saying they shouldn't have to go through all that. They already went through a lot serving this country. We owe them those services as quickly and diligently as possible. So again, I think this is the part of Bernie that really like both sides of the aisle can agree with. Well, both sides of the aisle in terms of the voters, the people in power, they will disagree with this. Like the Republicans will definitely somehow, they won't say it out loud. They won't say that they don't out loud to their constituents like, hey, I don't support expanding the VA. They'll code word it like, oh, it needs to be reformed or whatever, but that's just code words for privatizing it. So I'm going to continue. So healthcare. Bernie will fully fund the VA with the staff and infrastructure needed to ensure our country keeps its promise to our veterans. The overwhelming majority of veterans are happy with the care they receive from the VA, and it's our job to make it easier, not harder, for them to get high-quality care. As a longtime member and former chair of the Senate Affairs Committee, Bernie has heard from veterans in every corner of this country, from our most urban centers to our most rural communities, about the care they receive at the VA. Time and time again, those veterans want more care through the VA, not less. They know they can get high-quality care at the VA from dedicated providers who understand and care about the unique needs and experiences of our veterans. Bernie also understands that there will be times when it makes sense for veterans to utilize care in the community. Bernie knows that the community care access should not and cannot come at the expense of VA care. Not only has VA care been found to be good or better than private sector or at equal or lower cost, but private sector providers are unprepared and often uninterested in caring for the unique needs of veterans. For those reasons, coupled with robust quality standards and safeguards, we must make sure the VA care is available to veterans wherever and whenever possible. So yeah, there's a lot of issues that veterans go through that most normal people don't go through. So he's basically saying like, I don't want really like a separate system from the VA. There needs to be the VA, so that way there's people dedicated to just our veterans and helping just them, people that understand them, and people that want to help veterans. And I agree with that. Continuing, so throughout his career, including during his time as chairman of the Senate's Veteran Affairs Committee, Bernie has opposed efforts to privatize the VA. As Senator, Bernie voted against the VA Mission Act because he knew it was taking the VA in the wrong direction and putting veterans at risk. By sending more and more care into the private sector, veterans' preference to keep the VA strong would be ignored in favor of the preference of wealthy donors like the Mar-a-Lago trio and massive corporations. The privatization occurring under the Mission Act is leading to a massive budget shortfall in every region of the country. Instead of coming to Congress to request the funding needed to meet our obligation to provide care for veterans, the Trump administration is simply telling hospitals and medical professionals to do more with less, which will inevitably lead to worse care and more private sector care. So this is what I've seen that the Republicans will try and do if they have the power to. They'll pass things that sound like it's really reforming government programs, whether it be, well, in this instance, the VA. And when it starts, when problems start to occur, like there's longer waiting times, it's hard to get the care that they need, the rural hospitals aren't really good, or they're too far away, and the care is getting worse and stuff like that, the Republicans are like, see, it obviously, this government program is not working, maybe we need to scrap it or we need to completely privatize it, because then once we do that, then it will work. I mean, I promise, believe me, as Donald Trump would probably say. So continuing, so this is saying, as President, Bernie will work to fulfill the nearly 50,000 vacancies at the VA during his first year in office. The VA must hire the doctors, nurses, and medical professionals necessary to provide the care that veterans need when they need it. So I'm just gonna say a little thing probably after every bullet point here that it says the president will do, or that Bernie will do as president. So man, I did not know that there's 50,000 vacancies at the VA. So that's a lot of opportunities for jobs, especially in the medical field. So I see this as a great thing, because a lot of people, they want to have dignity in their work, and I think if he can fill in those 50,000 vacancies at the VA in his first year in office, there's gonna be a lot of people that will be fulfilled with their job by helping the veterans of this country. And I assume he's probably gonna, the way he's gonna try and fill those vacancies is probably by giving them a pretty good wage to do so. Going on, ensure that all those with prior military service in every state and territory have access to the full complement of healthcare services they need to stay healthy and well. Coupled with Medicare for all veterans, will be able to rely on a healthcare system that is working for them, not against them. A system focused on personal health, not their ability to pay. So yeah, so if we get a Medicare for all system, there'll be that basic healthcare that, you know, if you get sick or something like that, you can go there with no cost at all. But I think what Bernie's really trying to do is to make the VA something that specifically targets veterans, specifically to try and decrease like PTSD and or help people deal with PTSD and lower the suicide rates, and maybe more difficult problems with limbs that are amputated and stuff like that. So he's basically saying the two coexisting together will greatly benefit veterans. So finally, guarantee comprehensive dental care as a healthcare benefit to all former service members. So under Bernie's plan, every veteran who's eligible for healthcare through the VA will be eligible for comprehensive dental care. Not only will this make veterans healthier, it can build self-esteem, help them in their employment, and lower overall healthcare costs, since good oral health care is shown to reduce the risk of costly, even deadly infections like endocarditis. So yeah, that's true. I actually didn't know that the VA doesn't cover comprehensive dental care. I think that's also important because it says like help them in their employment. So like, yeah, if a veteran is retired and they don't have dental health care and they have bad teeth and they have like aches or their teeth just don't look good, when they go into a job interview, they might not get the job just literally based on their teeth. And veterans of this country definitely deserve better. And when we're talking about the suicide rates and stuff like that, having good teeth, it says, can build good self-esteem and stuff like that. So even if it's just the little things like that that help them, I think is a great thing. So another bullet point here: greatly expand access to VA mental health and suicide prevention services. We must end the stigma associated with mental health in this country once and for all. Expand the critical services to members of the National Guard and Reserve, regardless of whether they ever served overseas or in combat. Okay, so that's great. Get rid of the stigma of mental health, because a lot of people, I haven't mentioned it yet. I am in the military. I don't want to mention that too much in this show because I'm talking about politics, but I do see that a lot, where people don't want to get mental health help because of the stigma that comes along with it, that you might be crazy or that you're not normal or whatever. So if he can do something to end that stigma, that'd be a great thing. I think not even just for veterans, but the country as a whole, because especially if there's a Medicare for all system where people can just get the mental health help that they need, we'd be a lot better off as a country. And I think it's good that he wants to expand a lot of these benefits to National Guard and Reserve. I didn't know that they didn't have the same benefits as active duty. Research continues to show that one of the populations most at risk of suicide are those members of the National Guard who have not deployed in support of a federal mission. But under current law, these Guard members aren't allowed to use excellent specialized mental health and suicide prevention resources available through the VA. Wow, that's pretty crazy that people in the National Guard. So the difference between the National Guard and active duty is like National Guard, they do what's called a drill, like once a month, and I think it's like 1 or 2 days every month. So I think probably these people, they probably have the highest suicide rate, probably because they feel like, wow, I signed up to serve my country and I never got deployed or went on a federal mission, and I only go once a month. Like, what am I really doing for this country? So they probably feel kind of useless. So it's good that he wants to expand, especially the mental health and suicide prevention, to them, because they definitely deserve it. Expand successful beyond the yellow ribbon programs like the Vermont Veterans Outreach Program, so National Guard members and their families can benefit from helpful support services like mental health, financial, and marriage counseling before, during, and after deployments. Another great thing. Guarantee our veterans the long-term care services they need. Expand the veteran-directed care program to ensure that all veterans can choose who provides them with support. Long-term care services provided at VA, community living centers, and state veterans homes offer veterans high-quality care and dignity during the final stages of life. Unfortunately, strict eligibility standards for these services means only a small fraction of veterans qualify. We will simplify eligibility criteria so critically important long-term care services can be used by all veterans who use the VA, so they can continue to benefit from the high-quality care even when they're no longer able to live at home. He's basically saying, like, yeah, it's really hard to get into this program. I just think that if you're a veteran, you deserve high-quality care when you can't live by yourself in the house anymore, when you need somebody else to help you, when you need care and there's nobody else that can care for you. So expand the caregiver stuff. So I guess he goes into more detail here. Improve and expand the VA's comprehensive caregiver program. When we provide robust funding for the comprehensive caregiver program, we will actually save money in the long run by spending less on more expensive, less compassionate institutional care. Okay, I see what I was misreading it. So yeah, it's basically saying, like, we'll save money if we actually care for our veterans than what we're doing right now. So expand eligibility for the VA's caregiver program to include not only those veterans with injuries connected to the military service, but also illnesses like cancer, blindness, and dementia. These veterans deserve the right to be able to stay in their homes, cared for by those who love them. Their families also deserve to be compensated for the care they already provide. They deserve education on how to best care for their loved one, transportation to and from medical appointments, and respite care that allows them the time needed to care for themselves. So wow, this is actually a pretty good thing. So if you're like taking care of your grandpa that's a veteran or whatever like that, he think, well, you should be trained, so you should get the education, the transportation to take your grandpa to medical appointments, and you should be compensated for doing that because he sees that you're doing a service to this country by helping this veteran, even though you probably would do it out of the goodness of your heart because it's your grandpa. Guarantee home and community-based long-term care services. Under Medicare for All, if veterans want to remain at home and receive the supports and services to do so, they will have that choice. These services will be available when people need them without wait lists, asset and income restrictions, and other barriers. So that's pretty cool. They can get everything at their house. Ensure that all veterans are treated with dignity and respect. All veterans, regardless of their gender, race, sexual orientation, or gender identity, must have equal access to healthcare services, especially when it comes to treating injuries and illnesses connected to their military service. For too long, too many veterans have had to fight for medical care to treat their service-connected needs, and the VA's blanket exclusion on medically necessary gender affirmation surgeries ensure that veterans will no longer be forced outside the VA system for basic women's health services, including fertility treatment, abortion care, or specialized cancer treatment and prevention services. Okay, so this one's kind of interesting, and honestly, this is probably going to be the controversial part that's in the media if they decide to report on this. I bet, like, if Fox News would report on this instead of covering all the other things that I think both parties could agree on, they'd probably go with this stuff like medically necessary gender affirmation surgeries, and abortion care, because those are two very controversial issues, especially if you're conservative. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to if there's a veteran and he definitely feels like he's always been a woman, and if he doesn't get that gender affirmation surgery, he just doesn't feel like himself. I mean, I think if this prevents him from feeling depressed and stuff like that, then yeah, definitely should be covered by the VA. As long as the abortion care goes along with, like the laws that there is already in place for abortion. I kind of have a nuanced take on abortion that I probably will get onto in another video. I might make a video just about my stance on abortion, because I actually don't agree with either party on abortion. I think they kind of both go a little bit too extreme. So I'd like to talk about that more. So in this instance, I actually don't agree with Bernie Sanders there, and I hope I don't get too scolded for that. But I think if you were to hear like my nuanced take on it, you would more understand where I'm coming from. So moving on, provide over $62 billion in new funding for VA infrastructure. Today, due to serious underfunding, the VA's infrastructure is crumbling and in vital need of repair. VA hospitals have gone without needed updates, and maintenance, and outpatient clinics at vet centers have gone unopened. As President Bernie will invest at least $62 billion in infrastructure needed to provide the cutting-edge healthcare services our veterans have earned and deserve. So think about that, $62 billion, that's a lot of money. So when I guess when he was the veteran chairs that when he was the head of that, I said earlier, like he was able to get $5 billion in there. $62 billion, that could do a lot of work. And it's definitely something that we can pay for. You know, just the increase in the military budget last year was like $70 billion. And I mean, the actual soldiers, they didn't see that money going towards themselves. So that a lot of that money just goes to buying like tanks and the weapons and stuff like that. So if they actually invested $62 billion into the infrastructure of the VA and getting nice high-tech technology, then it would be a lot more noticeable where that money's going to. Support VA employees. One of the best ways to guarantee veterans get good care at the VA is to ensure that the VA can attract the best and brightest staff. Republican efforts to undermine the VA always include a tax on the good people who go to work every day to serve our veterans. That is unacceptable and will not be tolerated in a Bernie Sanders administration. Wow. Okay. Support VA personnel and attract new staff by providing strong whistleblower protections, ending anti-union attacks, and offering other incentives that reward high quality work like reasonable staffing ratios and compensation that's competitive with the private sector. So yeah, you know, I was actually watching a documentary today called American Factory, I think, and it's about like where they closed General Motors in Dayton, Ohio, and then this Chinese company, I think it's called like Fuyao or something like that. They make glass for cars and stuff like that. And it was crazy seeing how hard they try to ensure that their workers do not unionize, because it's hard. It's good for the workers, but definitely not good for the ones on top that just all they care about is a profit. So here, ending anti-union attacks, that's gonna be a very good thing if he's able to do that for the people that work for the VA. Because man, if the people that work at the VA they don't have a good union, then man, they're definitely the people that deserve a union. It is the people that actually work at the VA. They also deserve some really good benefits. So ensure VA providers have the option of appropriately prescribing medical marijuana to their patients. Okay, this is a great thing. So, you know, people that served in wars, they can't get medical marijuana. And especially if you're like, we're in a state where it's not legal. You know, like I'm from Washington State, so it's legal here. But let's say you're from like the South, which a lot of people in the military are from. And, you know, they have PTSD, and then marijuana is the only thing that helps them. And they can't get prescribed it because the VA doesn't allow it. Man, this could be literally life-changing for thousands of veterans. It's ridiculous that you send them to a war that's super dangerous, and then they come back and you tell them they can't have marijuana because the marijuana is dangerous, as if the war wasn't more dangerous. So yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. That might be one of the biggest things about his plan here, actually allowing veterans to get medical marijuana. Hopefully Bernie Sanders has said that he would legalize marijuana by executive order as well, so hopefully they would be able to get it by buying it if they needed to. End the privatization, corruption, and corporate greed of the VA by undoing the damage done by corrupt billionaires profiteering off veterans and taxpayers. Stop the irresponsible, immoral outsourcing of our nation's responsibility that this is lining the pockets of millionaire CEOs, investors, recentering VA care on veterans. So as with anything in America, and as of right now, the healthcare system, people are trying to find a profit. You know, the pharmaceutical industry is probably the most noticeable one. And I mean, the healthcare insurance companies, they're trying to get a profit on human illness and stuff like that. So it doesn't surprise me that rich people and millionaire CEOs are doing the same thing. They're trying to profit from the illness of our veterans, and he wants to put a stop to that. All right, we're about halfway, so yeah, this video is probably gonna be like an hour long, but I hope you guys are still listening and you guys want this in-depth, and I know I'm not really giving too much opinions just reading it, but maybe just having somebody read it allows you to think about it, or maybe you don't want to read it yourself and you're just driving to work or whatever, and you can just listen to this. So anyways, I'll continue. Disability benefits. No one who was injured through their military service should be denied benefits because of the complicated bureaucracy, period. We have seen too many veterans struggle to get the benefits to which they are rightly entitled. Worse still, veterans who have fought for and won these benefits have them taken away when their health improves. Bernie believes that veterans must be compensated for the disabilities connected to their service without being penalized for working hard to make improvements in their health. So yeah, definitely that would make sense to me, that if you're, let's say you have like you broke your leg or fractured something in the military, and or actually let's say you hurt your back in the military, which is pretty hard to prove, but let's say you legitimately hurt your back, and then you actually are able to start, because you start doing like stretches and you start eating healthier, you start losing weight, you're starting able to move better. They want to take away those benefits just because you're trying to improve yourself. It's not right. So here's some more points. As President Bernie will improve and simplify the claims process so veterans receive the compensation they have earned quickly, accurately, and without bureaucratic red tape. Eliminate the VA benefits backlog. A Bernie Sanders administration will no longer tolerate over 70,000 veterans having to wait over 125 days for determination on their benefits and up to 7 years to wait for a decision by a veterans law judge. Holy cow, 7 years? That is such a long time. No wonder there's so much outrage sometimes about this kind of stuff. And a disgraceful practice of President Trump and VA Secretary Wilkie, who have willfully chosen to ignore the medical community. So on his first day in office, Bernie will validate the findings of the Institute of Medicine, now known as the National Academics of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, to make sure veterans exposed to Agent Orange are compensated for bladder cancer and other illnesses. It is absolutely unacceptable that our current president is actively working against our ill and injured veterans, not for them. So I actually didn't know this. So I guess Trump and the VA secretary, they're ignoring that the findings of the Institute of Medicine say, like, yeah, our veterans I'm assuming from the Vietnam era, they were exposed to Agent Orange, and it is partly to blame for their bladder cancer and other illnesses. And I guess the administration right now is failing to recognize that. Ensure no future president can do what Trump has done by changing the law to make the recommendations of medical experts automatic, not reliant on presidential action. Okay, so this is good. So he's saying, like, instead of the president having to approve what the medical community has founded, just make it automatic. Whatever the medical community is saying, go with them. And I think this makes sense because, I mean, I don't think we've ever had a president that was like a former doctor or anything like that treated patients and stuff like that. So what, or, you know, studied medicine. So what do they actually know about, you know, what the Institute of Medicine found? Other than for political reasons, which is so dumb when it comes to helping our veterans. Expand the list of injuries and illnesses presumed to be connected with military service. Include the most commonly associated illnesses and injuries found in veterans from each era, including hearing loss and musculoskeletal injuries like back and knee injuries. Finally, include those veterans whose location and occupation during their service in the military was classified, righting the wrong that far too many of those veterans have gone without the care they've been entitled to simply because the Department of Defense is unwilling to tell the Department of Veterans Affairs needed information. Wow, so that means there was veterans that they were on classified missions, so they can't say where they served. And then the VA is like, sorry, we can't help you. So if anything, they deserve the most care because they probably went on the most craziest missions. Like if the location you're going is classified, then you probably went on some very crazy missions. And the Department of Defense isn't willing to tell the Department of Veteran Affairs like where they went on the mission. I mean, it's classified information. Yeah, I think you should just be like, yeah, I'm a veteran, this is what I did, and this is why I'm hurt. Help me. Fight for service members exposed to toxic substances. So ensure that veterans exposed to toxic substances from asbestos and ionized radiation in World War II to Agent Orange in Vietnam to burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan are compensated for the myriad of diseases associated with these dangerous chemicals. It is absolutely unacceptable that we have exposed our brave military members to these dangerous chemicals, and even worse, that we fail to compensate and care for the illnesses they cause. All right, so next, caring for veteran families. So yeah, we care about our veterans and stuff like that, but we also do need to take care of their families, especially if one of them dies or commits suicide. So let's read. Let's see what it has to say. Bernie understands that if we are truly committed to our service members and veterans, we must also commit ourselves to their families, who play a critical but often ignored role. Bernie will make it easier for family members to access the benefits to which they are entitled. This is specifically true for Gold Star families, widows, and widowers. Today, only a small number of veterans have been able to participate in VA's program of comprehensive support for family caregivers, which helps family members access the full complement of resources they need to care for veterans with service-connected injuries in their home. But it is completely unacceptable that Donald Trump and Republicans in Washington have failed to provide the funding needed to actually enroll these qualified veterans in the program. Today, too many veteran families are forced to make the terrible choice between sending their loved ones to a nursing home or caring for them in their home at their own expense. Bernie will invest in military families because he knows that is not only the morally right thing to do, but that such investment also makes our nation stronger. So he's basically saying, like, if you're a veteran, like, your family shouldn't have to be forced to put you in a nursing home, because most of the time your family probably wants to take care of you in your home. And he's saying, I'm gonna make sure that families are able to take care of their loved ones that served in the military in their own home, and not force the family to put them in a nursing home. As president, Bernie will fairly compensate military survivors by finally ending the unfair practice that prevents military widows and widowers from receiving their dependency and indemnity compensation and a survivor benefit plan, even though they are entitled to both. Okay. Improve and expand VA's comprehensive caregiver program. Okay, so we talked about that. I'm just going to skip a little bit of that because it just talks about why, and he's gone through some of those points already. So this next part, guaranteed justice for veterans. Bernie understands that today many of those who serve their country in uniform are prohibited from accessing critical services because of the terms of the discharge from the military. Too often, these service members made relatively small infractions that have stripped them from the benefits they needed most. Bernie will change the VA regulations so they match congressional intent, and that the only veterans barred from accessing VA care and benefits are those with dishonorable discharges. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that they get discharged from the military for, like, smoking marijuana or doing drugs, or, you know, they're just late all the time. They did stuff that in the real world it wouldn't be a crime, stuff like that. So you have to take away their benefits that they're entitled to. Kind of doesn't make any sense because, you know, they served our country. Bernie will also make the process for a change in the character of discharge more fair across branches of the military. Bernie believes that all those with prior military service should be guaranteed the same fair process for petitioning to change the character of their discharge determination. We must not allow branches of the military to use bad paper discharges as a way to shrink their force. Bernie will stand with the Vietnam Veterans of America in the campaign for a presidential pardon to get justice for thousands of veterans. All right, so here's saying, like, I think a lot of people that got a lot of people in the military that got a discharge that is a general discharge or other than honorable discharge, a lot of it might be bogus. So I think we should definitely have something in place so that they can at least have a fair process, because maybe they actually did deserve an honorable discharge. Bernie will also end the outrageous and inhumane practice of deporting undocumented veterans and their family members. Bernie will go further, returning deported veterans to the United States and reuniting families who have been unjustly separated. He will use executive authority to allow the families of veterans and service members to reside in the United States without fear of deportation. This includes swiftly reuniting some families of veterans who have been waiting years or even decades for their visas to be processed. So yeah, I actually saw this one video on YouTube of, I didn't even know this was a thing. There's some people that have served in the United States military that were undocumented, and then they get out of the service, or don't quote me on this, but maybe some that are even in the service and they get deported. So yeah, he's basically saying that's not right at all. They served our country, they fought for us. There's no reason for them to have been deported. They did a service to our country. So he's just saying I would bring them back here, and I would show them that, you know, the United States really is grateful for what you did for this country. So I'm gonna skip a little bit of that too, because I'm trying to wrap up soon. I know on a lot of these I spent a lot of time. So I'm just gonna skip to the next one. The topic is expand opportunities for veterans. I'm just gonna get to the part that says, as President Bernie will. It says, improve and simplify education benefits, pass college for all to make public colleges and universities tuition-free and debt-free. Ensure veterans can use the full complement of benefits through the GI Bill without hassle or red tape. Lift the expiration dates on benefits on their Montgomery and post-9/11 GI Bill to match the benefits under the Forever GI Bill. Ensure that all veterans, regardless of where they live, are guaranteed in-state tuition at public colleges and universities. That'd be really nice to be just go wherever you want if you're a veteran. Also, as far as the GI Bill, a lot of people are like, well, there's college for all, then what does the GI Bill do? Well, the GI Bill also pays for like your housing, and they give you a stipend every month. I think it's like around $1,000. So maybe they could even, because part of it is that it covers tuition, but if public universities are tuition free, then they could probably use that money to give you like a bigger stipend, more money for books. So yeah, that'd be pretty nice if they could shift the benefits over. Ensure that all veterans, regardless of where they live, are guaranteed in-state tuition at public colleges and universities. Hold for-profit colleges who try to take advantage of our veterans accountable. End the anti-veteran practice of Trump administration that are making it harder for veterans and service members to transfer their education benefits, and guarantee veterans' right to transfer their GI benefit to a child or spouse. Ensure access to better jobs and job training. Make it easier to transfer the skills service member learned during the military service into the civilian workforce. That is one thing. So I'm a paralegal in the military. So if they made it easier so that I could become a paralegal in the civilian world, that'd be really nice, because technically I'm not a certified paralegal outside of, like, I don't have like a paralegal certificate. I'm just a paralegal in the military. So if I were to get out, I'm not a like nationally certified paralegal. So if they were able to make that easier, that'd be pretty cool. Another point here, guarantee housing for veterans. Guarantee a federal commitment to housing first, while also respecting the preferences of certain veterans to live in housing that meets their unique needs. Expand the VA supportive housing grant and per diem and supportive services for veteran families to serve more veterans, and include these critical programs to ensure that all eligible veterans can benefit from this critical program, including veterans with young families and unique needs, like those fleeing intimate partner violence or suffering from MST, PTSD, or substance use disorder. Make it easier for veterans to use VA-backed home loans, and will make sure that these loans don't wind up in the hands of unscrupulous mortgage servicers. Stop the criminalization of homelessness and spend nearly $32 billion over 5 years to end homelessness. So that will help more than just veterans. Bernie Sanders is legit calling like for an end of homelessness. And it's $32 billion, and you know, it's kind of funny because I've seen figures about like how to end homelessness and stuff like that. It's not as expensive as people think. You know, Jeff Bezos is from Seattle, and he could end homelessness in Seattle and he would still be worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. So part of it is just actually putting the money towards that. This includes doubling McKinney Vento homelessness assistance grants to help build permanent supportive housing, and $500 million to provide outreach to homeless people to help connect them to available services. In the first year of this plan, 25,000 housing trust funds units will be prioritized for housing the homeless. Expand the Veterans Outreach Program. This innovative program, started in Vermont through legislation initiated by Senator Sanders, hired veterans to provide support to service members and their families before, during, and following deployment on everything from healthcare and benefits to marriage and financial counseling. This effort has been hugely successful in ensuring that veteran service members and their families can access the resources they have earned to help them live a healthy and productive life. So yeah, some veterans probably don't even take advantage of all the things they have. So he's basically saying like, we're gonna reach out and make sure that they need that whatever help they need, whether it be in healthcare, whether the divorce rate in the military is really high, so if they need some marriage counseling. A lot of people also aren't very good at dealing with their money, so they need some financial counseling and stuff like that. So he's basically saying, like, we're gonna make sure you have these benefits, and it's not just the VA in terms of the healthcare, but he's going everywhere. He's hitting housing, he's hitting education, obviously healthcare, he's hitting marriage, he's hitting your finances. So he's really, this is all in this, because I'm done reading the plan finally. This is a very detailed plan on how to help our veterans in this country, and I think if pretty much everything in here was implemented, veterans in this country would be really grateful for the things that now Senator Sanders is doing. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it's pretty long. Hopefully you guys were just like driving or running and just listening to the plan. If you guys have any suggestions for any other videos, if you guys want to hear more of Bernie's plans and just me read through it just the way I did, comment below, like and subscribe. Have a great day.